Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 13th edition of Parenting Autism.
Lucky 13.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Chris.
How are you?
Fabulous. How are you?
Good. We have a lot of ground to cover today, don't we?
Yes, we do. Your tone's cracking me up today. Yeah, we're back from a vacation. Had a little whirlwind getaway, which was incredibly nice, which is why we didn't podcast last Friday, because we don't have the ability to do it live. But yeah, so we got lots to talk about with our travels, lots to talk about. I think that's the biggest part of what we're going to be talking about. And of course, a couple of highlights, lowlights. And I think you have another tip from your card meeting.
Yes, I do.
From earlier this year. So yeah, let's get the party started. What do you want to start with? Hello. What would you like to start with today?
I'll start with my card note.
Okay.
Okay, so from the card conference, one tip that I picked up that I really liked was this thing called the core word board. So what it is we have core words in our language that we use all the time, like I, we, me, running, jumping, to, are, those types of words that compose of our core words. So when kids learn these core words, it's easy for them to build sentences on to those. So a core word board has all of these words and pictures of what the word is, kind of. So you can take these words and, like, if you Velcro them, you can, make sentences with them. And one tip that they told me was where the letter I is, representing me, you would put a picture of your child. So when they're thinking and talking and spelling I, they're looking at themselves, because that's what I represents. And we know that those types of words, the I, me, you, those are all very difficult for kids to grab that concept, besides the third person. A lot of our kids talk in the third person. Bryce wants this, or Bryce did this, so we've really been concentrating on getting him to use the I word. We haven't ourselves picked up one of these boards, but I think it's a great idea, and we may end up doing it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip. And it has been something we've really tried to teach him and to overcome, because even the I and the you, he gets backwards. So if you say, do you want to do it? He will say, you do it, when he really means, I want to do it.
Right.
Or vice versa. And then if we think he's saying, you do it, and then we do it, thinking he wants us to.
Then he gets upset.
And then you got the drama to deal with, that you did what he said he wanted to do, even though he said he wanted you to do it. So that is a big thing. And he does use the third person reference a lot. I hear him talking to himself a lot lately, like Bryce, like instructing himself. Yeah. But I think that's a great idea with the visual. And so the more he can see the word I and associate that with himself, I think that's great.
Yeah, so we got a big old storm going on here. Hoping the roof stays on.
I hear the thunder.
Yeah.
Not to mention that Bryce is in the house this evening as well, so we got two possible background noises that could interrupt this podcast, but
the thunder and rain might be soothing to you.
We'll get it in.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's great what you shared with your card tip and all. So let's talk about vacation. Okay. So this particular trip was a little different than what we've done recently, because this one involved flying, and we haven't flown with Bryce since last spring in April and May. And actually, I think he got a little skittish about it, even though I think he enjoyed it when he went last year. He couldn't really express it. He was excited when we came back. Like, I remember telling the airplane story over and over of everything we did in the hotel and all of that. But then he got a little skittish when we said, do you want to fly? And he was like, no, no, no. And then thankfully Blippi, the Blippi video, he saw that, and Blippi was flying. And for those of you who may not know who Blippi is, you should Google that, find him on YouTube, because he is really great with the kids. Bryce found him on his own somehow, and he really connected with him, and he teaches them great lessons, and he also teaches them how to overcome fears and different things like that. And I know he said in there, there's nothing scary about flying. It's actually fun, and that's what Bryce will say now.
He kept repeating that, and we don't know exactly what it was about flying that was upsetting him, but because he seemed to enjoy it on the plane, but he really couldn't verbalize it at that time whether or not he was enjoying himself. But it appeared to us that he was.
You mean last year?
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, and I don't know why he got thrown off not wanting to do it. But the great news is we prepped well this time, and thankfully for Blippi as well. But we also used his calendar, which if you've listened to our show before, you will know that Bryce is very much all about his calendar. He likes to have things written in advance. We'll draw little pictures on there. He's very excited that it just became May this week. And, so it's like he likes it when he gets to do a new calendar and updates, and looks forward to that. Looks forward to that. And so we had put on the calendar April 25th, so he knew on April 25 that he would be on an airplane, and again on April 28, and that he'd be in a hotel on the 26th and the 27th. So he's been counting down to that, and he was really excited about it. He wanted to wear his Blippi shirt, and I think he thought Blippi was going to be on the plane, but we knew he wasn't. We didn't want to burst the bubble in advance, but I thought, well, if he had his Blippi shirt, in case he started asking for Blippi, we could tell him that. But he actually didn't. He was totally cool with all of that.
Yeah. Normally I like him to wear an autism-related shirt so that people in lines and around us know that he has autism, just in case there is a meltdown or something. But he was dead set on wearing his Blippi shirt, which I was fine with, and I knew that if we changed that program that would not have a good ending anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, I was happily surprised to see that you thought that through, and you actually wore your Daddy Autism shirt, where it's people would know, and it's really large on the back side of your shirt, that your son has autism. I think it was 1 in 42, because at that time you're like, my son is 1 of 42, and it's got the logo on it and the puzzle piece, which is really good, because like you said, things happen. And actually we had the TSA and the people help us at the airport, so it kind of gave some insight as to why we were getting the special treatment that other families weren't getting. And if you want to share on that was really great research that you did there.
So speaking of videos, the TSA.gov website has a video of kids going through the security, so they can kind of get an idea what that's like. So if you guys are going to fly, it might be a good idea to show your kiddo the video, just to show them, what the steps are. I also called the number on the website for the TSA, and the person wanted the flight information and the airport information so that they could be ready for us when we got there. So what happened is they took all the information down, and then as long as you're within 72 hours out from your flight, they can coordinate all this. So you have to give them 72 hours notice. So right after that, I got an email from the Sanford airport where we flew out of, that the TSA wanted me to call them. He said, hey, give us a call when you're on the way to the airport, and we can coordinate somebody out at the curb even to meet you there, and then guide you through security and go with you the whole way. So I was very surprised and happy to hear that they were willing to help that much. And then I got a phone call from the Omaha airport where we were flying into, and they said, when you get here, just ask for a passenger support specialist. That's a key word, or a supervisor, because the people checking the passports and the boarding passes, they may not know why you're there. So you can mention it to them, say, hey, we have a child with autism. We called ahead. They know about it. But if they give you a funny look, they said, well, ask for a passenger support specialist or a supervisor. And one of those two people will have all of your information and guide you through security. So what happened was, when we got to the Sanford airport, we got in line to check our luggage, and the employee behind the counter there, she says, this is the last call for Omaha. And I thought we were early.
We were an hour ahead.
We were an hour ahead, and the lady's like, well, whoever's going on Omaha, raise your hand. So we raised our hand, and so we're like, we're going to Omaha. She's like, come to the front of the line. And it was like this urgent thing. And so we got our luggage checked. We got up the escalator to the security line. And I forgot that I had left my folder with the boarding passes and everything else back at the check-in counter. So I had to run down the stairs, go get all that stuff, get back up. And we felt like we were already behind, and the line wasn't terribly long there at the Sanford airport near Orlando. So we decided to wait it out, and we were able to get through there. Once we got up to the scanners, I kind of explained to the guy, our son has autism. He's like, no problem. He'll come through first, and then you'll follow through. And so that went smoothly. We got to the gate, and we were still there half an hour ahead of time before the flight left. So that really worked out good. And then when we got on the plane, he gave the pilot a high five. So that was cool.
That was really cute.
Yeah. But tell them about when we were boarding the plane, about the
For
people.
the Omaha? Yeah, well, I was, my input on this is it was a wonderful service that was offered to us, and it really was great. But I did notice that what I told Chris was, I think if you're going to use this, you're going to have some thick skin, because there are other people that don't know what's going on. And again, Bryce's disability is not a visible disability. He's not in a wheelchair. He doesn't have, if you look at him, if he's behaving in, the normal fashion, you would have no idea. Of course, that can change on a dime. And even if he is having some type of meltdown, most people interpret that to be bratty behavior and not an autism episode.
Right.
So, you wearing your shirt is one clue if people look at that. But obviously the people weren't looking at that, because when we were in Omaha, we were waiting in a long security line. So this is for the return home. And there was a family in front of us. I think they probably have 5 to 7 in their group. And they had a little girl that probably looked like she was probably 2, I would guess. And so anyway, so when the agent came down the line, and then you mentioned, about Bryce, she goes, oh, you're who I'm looking for, because you had already pre-registered. And so right then she said, come here. And we got out of the line to obviously move and go forward. Well, they didn't know why. And they're like, oh, we have one too.
Yeah.
And so, and they meant a child. And then she's like, no, this is a special circumstance, which I'm sure they were wondering, like, what does that even mean? Okay, so we kept going, and we got through, and it really was wonderful. And then we got to the gate, and they did pre-boarding through our airline, which happened to be Allegiant, which is the first time we flew with Allegiant. And so they did a pre-boarding, and then they did something else after that, and we were waiting for our zone. Well, you went up to the ticket agent and you asked, you just said, is there special pre-boarding if someone has a disability or my son has autism? And she said, oh, you should have gone with the pre-boarding. And we're like, okay. And then there was like a lull right there. And she said, well, if you want to go now, you can. And we're like, okay, great. I mean, anytime they're going to let you get on early with your child, you're going to take it.
Yeah, I mean, and so, another worry we have is inside the jetway where the line forms.
Yes.
So it's similar to a security line. It just doesn't move, and you just You don't want to be in that spot.
And Bryce's anxiety gets really high when traffic stops, whether we're in the car, whether we're walking. He doesn't understand why, and he's just like, green light, go, green light, go. I mean, that's how he is all the time. So, getting stuck in the jetway would not be fun. So being able to avoid that, yes, we're all over it. And so as we were starting to go in, I did hear this other lady say, oh, so they get to go through, but we have to wait. And the ticket agent, she kind of handled it. And she's like, you don't know their story. You just worry about yourself and I'll worry about them. And then she just escorted us on it. And so, I'm not one who likes to have attention brought to me, especially like that. But it's part of the world that I've learned to adjust to in the world of autism, because I have strangers that look at me in the store if Bryce is stuck at a door, or if something's going on, or he's making his loud, quirky sounds, interrupting somebody's dinner, which we try to take them to places that are relatively loud, not a romantic setting, but still, I'm getting used to people giving me stares or making comments. It doesn't ever get easier, but it's just one of those things I just want to put out there, that if you have the thick skin and you've gotten used to it and you really don't care, it's a fantastic opportunity and a gift to me from the government and the TSA to let us have those privileges with Bryce.
That's why, if we're going out in public and we know we might be in a situation where there could be a meltdown, I like him to have his Patience Please shirt on. But, we have that on our website now, right?
We do.
So www.parentingautismshow.com. What it is, it's got a large puzzle piece in the middle, and then it says Patience Please, and then autism awareness on it, front and back, so they can see it coming and going. And it's personalized with
the child's name.
Yeah, and we can personalize that too. So it's really helpful when you're out in public. But back to the TSA thing, I was very surprised to see that lady, she was checking people as she was walking toward us, and I'm like, and I was just saying to you, I don't know what we should do. Should we go up to the front? But I feel uncomfortable going up and approaching the agent up there. But here she came down the line looking for Bryce, unbeknownst to us. And when she got to us, she's like, yes, I'm here to help you. So I believe she told us that in the future we just go through the TSA pre-check line.
Yes.
And then they take us from there. But she escorted us through security, so we still had to go through all the motions down there when we got there, but she was with us the whole time. She even offered to go to the gate with us, but once we got through security, we felt like we were good to go, so that she could help somebody else. Our gate was literally
right there, so that helped.
So that was a totally great experience. I highly recommend that to anybody. There's also a little badge type of thing that you can print out for your child that has some TSA verbiage on it. It might even have their phone number, and it has a space on it where you can write in what the diagnosis is. And then what I did was I printed that out and I laminated it. I punched a hole in it and then put it on a lanyard for Bryce to wear. So that's also on our website under the resource tab.
Yeah, and you put it on a puzzle piece autism type of lanyard as well.
Yeah, we picked that up at a conference, so I thought that would be good. But it just
kind of helps because, again, anything that's visual to help create that awareness is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was that. We were very impressed with the TSA.
Yeah, so flights, the flying situation was fantastic. That was definitely something that we learned on this trip that we did not know previously, so we wanted to share that. And we'll have all the links and the phone number and all of that in the show notes, but we wanted to share that. And Bryce really did enjoy it. And you lost your window seat because Bryce likes the plane so much that he wanted to take the window seat with you in the middle. Yeah. Really sweet. And he's been talking about it, and now he's watching plane videos on YouTube of them taking off and landing. He's wanting to learn all the different parts of the plane. He's fascinated with them putting the luggage on.
So he's able to tell us now how much he enjoyed it, and we're really thankful for that, that we didn't have any hiccups.
Yeah. You know how our kids are. Once they love something, they're on it. So that's a big thing for him right now. So it's very cool. And then he also loves trains, and he also loves automobiles. So that's why I'm going to title this episode Planes, Trains, and Automobiles Traveling, because he is so about all of that. And so we have had in the past when we traveled and had to get a rental car, he gets attached to them. And then if we have to change cars, he'll get upset that we have to come back to our original car. But I have to say that he transitioned better this time. But he was making requests on the way to the car rental place that, you know, he was asking for that he wanted a white car, and then he said he wanted a red car. And, you know, we don't know what color we're going to get. So we didn't want him to have expectations and then be upset if that wasn't what we got, because those are the kind of things that we don't know what's going to trigger him. But those are the little things that have triggered him in the past, like where he's expecting something and then it doesn't come to be what he's expecting.
Don't set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, right. So we weren't committing to a color, but we did get a white one, which was on his list, and he was very happy with that. Well, one other little thing with him that I was just going to point out is, so we learned on the last trip that he did not like taking the bus ride from the airport terminal over to the car rental building. And I think it was because this guy was really friendly, the driver, but he sang a song to Bryce.
Yeah.
Over the microphone, and it was too loud for Bryce, and he covered his ears. And I think it kind of wigged him out, because when we said, okay, we have to take a bus to go get the rental car, he's like, no bus this time. I mean, he was like really adamant on it.
Yeah.
So then we learned quickly to just say, we're going to take the big white van. And when we called it the big white van, he got on it with no problem, even though everybody else would call it a bus. Yeah. So, you know, it's those kind of things that I just want to encourage parents who, especially those who are newer to this and you're trying to figure it out and you're at your wits' end. We've just learned to become a little more creative and trying to figure out ways around what Bryce will accept and not accept. And when I knew that he doesn't want to hear the word bus, then we're not going to use the word bus. But if we could describe it as something else and it's something that's okay with him, then it works. So actually, it was very pleasant. We used that both ways, and we had no issues, where previously we did have issues. So that was smooth. We got the car. He loved it because it's one of those fancier, newer cars where you can press the button and the engine starts. So he got to do that a few times on this trip, start the engine, which is a big deal for him because he's all about, again, the engines and the cars. And buttons. So it was cool. We did a road trip. The whole purpose of this trip, this particular little vacation, was because I'm on the mission to see 50 states, and I was going to do it 50 by 50, but with my birthday being next month, I don't think I'm going to make it to 50 by June. But I was at 44, I think I was. Yes. And so this time we were able to see 4 states, and so now I've seen 48. So that was really exciting for me. So on this trip, we saw Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and South Dakota. We worked all of that in, and so we did a lot of driving. But another tip that we have implemented, and we've kind of done this all along in our marriage, even before we had Bryce, but we try to build in extra time when we're traveling. I know you call it for contingencies, but I also call it for, you know, raise your hand if there's something you want to stop and see, and we want to have time to be able to do that, because when are we ever going to be back here again? And so, you know, we built in time for that. So that was cool. So like even on the way down to Kansas on that Friday, we were able to stop, and I know you saw a tank, like it was a park that had a memorial, like a veterans memorial, and they had a huge tank, and then they had a playground behind it. And we thought, well, we had been driving for a couple hours, so we're like, okay, that'll be a good pit stop. And so we stopped, and but Bryce was all about the playground. We got your picture with the tank, and then there were kids on the playground, and Bryce went right over and he played with them it was an old-fashioned merry-go-round, like the kind I played with when I was a kid. And it was really cool. It was great for us to see him interact with the kids. And, you know, he couldn't have a conversation with them, but they were laughing together. They were playing together. He was watching what they were doing, and he was trying to do it. He was pushing them on the merry-go-round. They were pushing him.
He really didn't stick out, except that he wasn't answering their questions, But they were having fun with him, and he was having fun with them, and he was just able to be a kid, and it was just so nice to see that.
Yeah, and if you parent a child on the spectrum, you'll know that that's one of your biggest concerns is your child being able to make friends, and to get along and to interact. Because for the longest time, if we went to a playground, Bryce would not interact with anybody. He would go and run his hand along the fence. He would pick at something that was on the bench. I mean, he had no typical interest like other kids would have at the playground. So we're just seeing a lot of progress with him, and that he gets this concept that he wants to play, and it's pretty cool. So we had that little pit stop, drove down to the Kansas line. I got my picture taken with the Kansas sign, welcome. And then you got your picture taken with the oil rig, because that was cool. And you thought, well, I think you were like, should I do it? No. And I'm like, when are you ever going to see an oil rig again? So let's do it. You know, I thought that your brother would think it was cool. And we sent him a picture and a video so he could see that moving. And he did think it was cool. So that was fun. And then we drove up to Sioux City and we went to the Hard Rock, because you have your tradition of getting a pin for the Hard Rock. But speaking of pin, I'll come back to Hard Rock. We went that morning to the National Park place.
Yeah.
That's actually
Lewis
what we
and
did
Clark,
first.
Center at the National Park. Was that in Omaha?
That was in Omaha. No, it was downtown Omaha.
Yeah, so we went to the Lewis and Clark Center, and they have something called an access pass, and kids on the spectrum can get this pass for free, and what it gives them is a lifetime membership to all the national parks in the United States, and also access to federal recreation lands, which we're still figuring out what that is.
And we don't know what we have access to, but we got access to something.
We planned on doing this as part of the trip, and it was really neat because the pass was free if you do it in person. They charge $10 if you do it online. But you just have to have a letter of diagnosis from your doctor, and they give you this card that's like credit card size, and Bryce had to sign the back of it. And they also give you a rear view mirror hanger and a map of all the parks. So we got all that, and it's free. If you ever lose it, you have to go through the same routine again to get it back. But it was very nice, and instead of doing the Hard Rock tour like what we've been doing, we're going to switch it over to focus more on Bryce, and we're going to try to tackle all of the national parks and get like a pin at each park, and then put that on a lanyard or some type of strap.
We got a lanyard there that said I found my park or something like that, and so we got his first pin while we were there.
We're excited.
And I did put pictures on our Facebook page of all of his card and his signature on it. It's a really pretty card. And so anyway, I have all that on there, and so that was cool. Yeah,
I'm looking forward. I mean, we only have apparently one national park here in Florida, and that's Everglades. And so we're looking forward to visiting that. It's down south near Miami, so this time of year it'll probably be hot, but I think if we visit it sooner than later, it's just going to get hotter here as the months go on. But.
Well, and you and I have had the privilege of visiting a lot of the national parks. But to take Bryce back will be really cool, and then get the pin, because we've wanted to go back to all of them anyway. So, it's a cool thing. And we did have such a beautiful day on that Friday, the blue skies. And I do want to give a shout out to Omaha, because I think that is a really cool city. I enjoyed it there. I think it's got a lot of character. It's got like a historic feel to it, with the brick buildings and a little bit of the cobblestone road. A lot of cool statues, a lot of art there as well. But they also have like the parks, and it's on the water, so you see a lot of water and green. And I don't know, it just had so many elements to it. And of course, the people, they're so nice out in the Midwest and the Heartland. And it was a really, really great experience. And that day we had high 60s, I think, or the high was like in 62,
Upper 60s,
63.
I think,
yeah, it was nice. And you know, a little cool at night, but we were inside. And then
the cold front came
I was going to say, and then we were watching the news that night, and they were talking about snow coming in the next day. And I'm like, what? Where is that? It was local news. And so apparently snow came in that next day on last weekend on that Saturday, and it was hitting Wisconsin, and it was hitting Minnesota and South Dakota, a little bit north of where we were. Like we could have driven an hour and probably really seen some snow, but we didn't pack clothes for snow.
And we really didn't want to drive more.
Yeah, we didn't want to drive further, and Bryce really did not enjoy the cold.
No, he's like, my hands are hurting.
We got a full sentence out of him. Hey!
We'll go back to the car.
He said that one all on his own. He figured it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was cold, but we had already told him that what we were going to do on that Saturday was go to the Sioux City Railroad Museum. And so it was cold, very cold. And when I say cold, we're not being wimpy here. It was like 34 degrees and raining. That's cold to a Florida person.
And windy.
And very windy. And so anyway, we were going to go because he kept talking about it. And so we weren't able to do any of the outdoor activities that they had at this museum because they had like a train track outside and all kinds of cool stuff. They even like let you, the kids, I guess, during the year, they told us that the kids can drive the train and have that experience.
Yeah.
It's like some price you pay, but still. I mean, it was like reasonable. It was like $50 or something, which I'd pay that for Bryce to have that experience. It was really cool. But inside, we had two different buildings we went into. I was saying it looked like a warehouse. Would you say it looked like the one with the big steam engine?
Well, I think it was like an original locomotive garage, you know, because right outside the garage, there was a switching station like what you'd see on Thomas the Train, you know, where it turns the trains around. And so we went into the garage, and here's this big restored steam engine and a caboose sitting next to it. Yeah. So it was really, they did a super job restoring this thing. It looked like a brand new steam engine. It
was really cool, and we could climb up, and Bryce could sit in the driver's seat and with all the gadgets.
He was asking what all the levers and buttons were, and I really didn't know, but...
Yeah, we did that, and then we went over to the caboose, and it had like the original historic sink in there. You could see the bedding that was there.
Like a wood-burning heater.
Yeah, that was really cool. Like the stove was in there, and then the potty was missing, and that freaked Bryce out. Actually, he thought that was very interesting.
The potty was there.
Was it broken?
I told him it was broken because
he wanted to use it.
He said, "Oh, a potty." I'm like, "Yeah, it's broken because you know the next thing would have been he
might have used it."
Yes, and there probably would have been pee coming out the bottom.
Yeah, that probably would not be good. I thought it was missing. That's so funny.
No, it was there.
He just kept talking about it being broken. So yeah that's what. If you ask him after we came back, how did you like the Railroad Museum? Oh, the potty was broken. Yeah, that was the one thing that made an impression on him. Yeah. But he really did enjoy that. He kept going back into that, and then that place was not heated. It was pretty cold in there, but we were enjoying it. And then we drove down just a little bit, and there was this other building that had, what would you call those trains that they had set up?
Model railroads.
Just model railroad displays.
Yeah, HO scale, O scale, N scale, all different kinds of scales of
It was huge. I've never seen anything that large in my life.
Yeah, me neither.
It was really, really cool and beautiful, the scenery and all the sets that they had set up. And
they really did a professional job on it.
Yeah, and they had like two different rooms. In one of the areas, they have like a carnival theme. So when I saw the Ferris wheel, Bryce is so into Ferris wheels right now as well. I thought, wow, he's going to love this. So he had trains going around the Ferris wheel, and it was Thomas the Train, and he was so happy. He was happy and flappy and studying and trying to just like figure it all out.
I was surprised too because it was very loud in that room with all the trains running, and I think the reward outweighed the irritation of the noise for him. And he tolerated it very well, and he got to push buttons, which made the Ferris wheel work, and the merry-go-round, and there was a little plane that went around in a circle. Yeah. You push the button, and it goes around in a circle. So he really enjoyed that part of it. And then in the other room, it was just a massive layout I forget what
they had several trains going at one time.
Yeah.
And the one that went around the ceiling as well.
Right. And I think they said that one end of the train set was supposed to be modeled after Death Valley, and then the train came through to like a city, and I forgot what city that was supposed to be, but it was very realistic, and we were there for a couple of hours just in that building, checking everything out, and everybody was so friendly there, telling us about it.
Yeah. If we lived in that area, we would be frequent visitors for sure. So I want to give them a big shout out. Again, it's Sioux City Railroad Museum, and it's right there. It's in Iowa, but it's right where Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota meet, in that corner.
Yeah.
And it is totally worth taking your kiddos there if they enjoy trains. I can imagine if on a nice day where you can be outdoor and indoor, that would be a full day experience easily. So,
and they were so nice.
Well,
we were the only ones that came out in the weather to the museum, so they said that we didn't have to pay admission because we braved the weather, and so we were very appreciative of that. And we're just going to send them a thank you card with Bryce's picture, and we're going to make a donation to the museum.
Yep. So big props, and then we thought the least we could do is also give them a little shout out on here and hopefully drive some people their way,
because it was
really fantastic. So we had that experience, and then again, it was so cold. I would have loved to have been able to go outdoors and explore in a park or something that day, but it wasn't happening. It was just not the right weather for that. So we took back roads back down to Omaha, and I was Googling what we could do next, and I found the Durham Museum, because they look like they have an amazing zoo and aquarium in Omaha. But again, I just didn't think it was a nice day for the zoo, and I didn't want to. Bryce is just not there yet, and I didn't want to waste. I didn't want to waste the time or the money on it if I didn't think he'd have interest. So I'm like, what would he like? And when I read the Durham Museum, it's actually a former train station. It's kind of like what's the one in New York City?
Grand Central.
Grand Central Station. That's what it reminded me of when we went inside.
A mini version
of Grand Central Station. They had a phenomenal gift shop, which Bryce scored several new train shirts because we like them, and he needs shirts. And they're the kind he will wear without buttons or collars, so we're good.
Right.
But anyway, it was really nice. And so they had, the benches that were there. They tried to keep its original feeling, I think. And then when you go downstairs, of course, Bryce loved the elevator because it was kind of the kind that you could watch through windows so he could see everything moving. But we went downstairs, and they had the old train car. It was very interactive, so they had things that Bryce could do as well. What were you saying, like the creating the steam and
like interactive things, creating the steam. They had several different sets of train wheels, so you could try out the train wheels to see which one worked best on the track. They had the bell from the steam engine that you could ring, so he really liked that. And spread out throughout the museum were these bronze statues of people like back in the day when the train station was active. So like there was this military guy, bronze person sitting on one of the benches there like he was waiting for a train. And there was another one, I think, holding luggage, somebody else holding luggage. So it was really neat. And they had they also had a model train, much smaller scale than the Sioux City one, but that was going around, and they had a little drive-in theater, like a miniaturized to scale to this O-gauge train. So they had the little cars lined up in front of the drive-in screen, and coming out of this little tiny building was the projector with the image, and it was projecting the image onto the drive-in screen, which I thought was just amazing. I had never seen anything like that. So Bryce, he didn't take as much interest in that model railroad, but he did like climbing through the steam engine and the caboose that they had there. And they had several other train cars there that you could walk through. So that was interesting, walking through those train cars. And then, so from there, we just went back to our hotel and thawed out, and we're getting ready for the flight out the next day, and everything went smooth.
Yeah, so it was really just a great experience. The one other thing about the train station that I thought was really neat was that as we were getting ready to leave, they were preparing for a wedding, and it was really nice. They were setting up on the top floor, and then I saw downstairs when I went to take Bryce down one more time, they were getting pictures taken, like the little ring bearer and the flower girl in front of the big steam engine, and they were setting up like their refreshments and I guess whatever they all had going on there. But I always said to you, I could see Bryce getting married in a train station one day.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that might be like the perfect setting for somebody that really loves trains.
I asked the lady in one of the shops, I was like, do you guys have a lot of weddings here? And they're like, oh, yeah.
I can imagine. So that was really cool to actually even see that. It looked really nice. Everything that they did, you could tell was really cool. Nice little touches. And then the only other thing I will comment on that trip, and then we'll go into some just lowlights, was on Sunday morning before we left, we were having our breakfast, and the lady that was our waitress there, she saw your shirt that had the Autism podcast on it. Mm-hmm. And so then she said, is that really a podcast? And we're like, yes. And she's like, oh, because my niece has autism, and my sister, she is just trying everything to, find more help. Her niece was older. She's like 13, which we don't talk about that yet because we haven't hit that particular age. But it brought up conversation. We were able to talk to her about some things, kind of hear what goes on in their area, with their schools, because it's always different in every state. And it was just really neat for us to have that connection, and that she saw that. And that's what we hope to come out of this podcast, is to connect people. And, we haven't had other people on the podcast yet, but we have talked about maybe having other parents on here, maybe that have children of different ages, so that it's not just all about Bryce. I mean, yeah, we're here to share the mommy perspective and the daddy perspective, because it is very different. I mean, like you were saying to me on this podcast, well, guys just want the facts, just the headlines, and right. I'm like, yeah, but women like the details. We want the whole paragraph, and that's why we're both here.
So Sandy's giving you all the details.
I do, and Chris will give you headlines. So that's the way it works,
That's the way men and women work.
Rule of thumb. So anyway, so that was just neat, and it was just a happy, engaging note to wrap up in Nebraska and for that whole trip. It was very, very cool. And the flight home was smooth, and Bryce got to give another pilot a high five. And this time the pilot was like, no, come back. Because Bryce is like, he just does his business. High five. And then he turns around to leave. And the guy's like, no, come back. And so then Bryce froze. And I'm like, it's okay. It's safe. And he wanted to show him the gadgets on the control panel. And then he gave him the microphone and said, here, you want to talk into the microphone? And of course, if Bryce doesn't understand what you're saying, he just repeats it. So he's like, the microphone? That's what he said, into the microphone. And the pilot's like, yeah, well, that'll work. So it was just really cute. And everybody just embraced him, and it was good stuff. Great trip. So we hope, that us sharing some of these travel tips will help a little bit, and especially with the TSA if you're flying, but just all kinds of tips there. Preparation. I mean, that's like the biggest thing that we have found with Bryce. The more time we allow to plan, the more we let him know what's coming up. If he knows we're going to a new hotel, if he knows we're getting a different car, just don't surprise with changes. Life gets much easier.
Yeah, advance notice works.
For sure. So the only other thing I was going to share, I like to... There's Bryce, if you can hear him. It's been a couple weeks since we've done the podcast, so we just had a highlight and a low light here and there. But I always like to share those, because I think that, again, is part of the reason why we have the podcast, is so people can kind of have some insight as to what it's like for us parenting Bryce. And it's not always easy. It's not. I would love to say that it is, but it's not. And we do get joy, and we laugh at him every day. But there's times when things upset him, and we are perplexed as to how we can help him through those certain things. But on the happy note, I just wanted to share first that the other day I was looking for his iPad cord because we needed to charge it. And so I didn't know where it was, and you had gone to the grocery store. And so I was like, I don't know where it is, Bryce. I don't know where Daddy might have put it. And so he said to me, well, maybe a Mousecatool can help us find it. And I thought that was fantastic that he took the concept from watching, the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and with Toodles and the Mousecatools, that maybe we could find a Mousecatool to help us find what was missing. And so I love that because he's been watching Mickey Mouse for a couple of years, but he really wasn't getting any of those. And I was waiting for that to happen, for him to actually call for Toodles, or Mickey will ask questions and wanting the kids to respond, and he's just getting to that. But when he applied that, that was a really exciting little thing. And while some people don't get that that's exciting, I think if you live in our world, you understand that that's exciting stuff when your child can do that. So that was really cool. And then I would say probably the sad thing from this particular week was the other night when it was bedtime. So again, we have mentioned before in previous episode that Bryce is most sensitive when he is tired. That's definitely your warning time when it's late or if he's hungry, which I think we all act differently and behave differently when we're tired and we're hungry. In his case, he gets very sad, and he was kind of off his game the whole day anyway. I just remember him with tears in his eyes saying, Bryce is super sad. Bryce is super sad, and he couldn't tell me why, but he was. And so that night,
he wasn't feeling well either.
I think that's part of it. He's had this lingering cough, and I know he's not feeling his best. And so anyway, we were getting ready to go to bed, and he wanted to brush his teeth. And at school, they've been teaching him, which is great, brush your teeth in the morning and at night. And we always do it in the morning, but I can't say that we're 100% on night. Doing it at nighttime. Well, he wanted to do it. And so he was in there brushing his teeth, and I think Chris was also tired, so he's trying to move it along. And so that's when you were like, you're like...
It was late.
I know, honey, I pointed out that it was late, and you were tired. And
you said okay. I was in a hurry, but I
didn't say hurry, I said
late.
Tired. Yeah. I think you want me to wrap this up.
No. Okay. I'm just saying that it was late.
It was late.
We were late getting to bed, and then he wanted to brush his teeth. So I was okay with that because, it just adds another 5 or 10 minutes to the routine. But if he needed to do it, then he needed to do it. And I was just... It was in the middle of that something happened. What happened?
Well, I think you were trying to rush him along because you didn't want it to be 5 or 10 minutes. And so you said, let's hug, because that if you and I hug, he wants to be a part of it and do a group hug. So
I know what it was. I mentioned Miss Amanda.
Well, we didn't get to that part yet.
We didn't get to that part yet. Okay. So, yeah, he was in the bathroom brushing his told him that we were going to hug, that he would want to be in the middle.
Correct.
So he would finish up and then come running out, and we would get to bed.
That would be the plan.
That was the plan.
But the plan backfired in a big way. And so, yes, you did that, knowing that would make him... Oh, no, I can't miss it. So he comes running in, and he's mad. And he says, I got in trouble. And he told me I made a red choice. Mommy, red choice. Go to the black chair
because
now.
He didn't finish brushing? Is that what it was?
Well, because you started to hug without him.
Oh, that's right. So
yeah, so he's upset that, hey, yes. Why are you guys doing a group hug and I'm not a part of it? So he's really upset. So I go in the other room, to humor him. I'm going into timeout. He joins me. And then you went in the bathroom and you put away all his toothbrush and toothpaste or tooth powder. And he goes back to finish what he had started,
and I didn't know.
And you had put it away,
right?
And
I thought we were past that. That point.
And to your defense, yes, you did. But Bryce was not done because he was interrupted, and you have to know with our child by now that he needs closure. If anybody watches Big Bang Theory, and you know Sheldon, he needs closure. That would be Bryce. You can't interrupt something and then he doesn't get to finish it. That's where it all started going south. And then you're like trying to redirect him. So you told him to go ahead and go potty and wash his hands. And then we're going to go read our book and we're going to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. So he relieved his bladder of everything he had. And he didn't want to wash his hands. And that's when you said that his teacher, Miss Amanda, who Bryce wants to please because he adores her, that she would want him to wash his hands. Yeah. So he came out of the bathroom, and then he started crying. He was super upset because he thinks Miss Amanda is super sad because he didn't want to wash his hands.
Right.
So now he has to recreate from the beginning, which means he needs to go potty again, which means he needs to pee again, and there's nothing left in him. And I tried to explain to him, you'll have more tomorrow, but you don't have any more today. And that was not good enough. He needed it. He's standing there in position, pants down, wanting to go, trying to go. He can't go. His tears are pouring. And it's one of those scenes that I felt helpless as his mom trying to help him because, normally I can get creative and make something happen that makes him think that, okay, you did it again, and we can move on.
We can redirect him or say something or, something to get him turned around. But
this was not happening.
He was really stuck on this one.
His hands he was not leaving the bathroom until he could go again. And then I'm like, I don't want to give him a bunch of water because it was really late, and I don't want to wait for that to all process so that we can do this again. I mean, this could be an hour. So we did offer him up. Well, we used the word cookie, which will move him along. It's like our thank God for the.
But did it really work?
It really did get him out for the cookie.
My memory is so bad.
I know it is, honey. But yeah, and you can play these back later, and then you'll remember the stories all over again. But anyway, we got his cookie.
I was there,
and that did get him out of the bathroom, which was goal number one. But then he wanted to go back in, and I'm like, no. And so at that point, I'm like, I told you, he's just going to have to go to sleep sad and crying. There's nothing else we can do here. He was just
tired, hungry, and maybe hungry, but he was definitely sick.
You wasn't feeling good. Started telling the story about the airplane and about it taxiing on the runway, and you had a really calm, soothing voice, and I was holding him and soothing his head, and anything that we could do just to calm him.
And he was out like in 10 seconds.
He did go out very quickly. He did, and you finished your story. He was finally out. He was asleep. And you're like, he's going to wake up wanting to go. Do this again. I'm like, well, he should have a full bladder when he wakes up, so it should be good.
Fortunately, when he did wake up, he had forgotten
about the whole thing. About it. And that's not always the case. Sometimes he will wake up thinking about whatever was upsetting him when he went to bed. But thankfully, we have not had something like this happen in a while. But this is what happens. And again, it's just something that's so beyond his control. It's the way his little mind processes information, and that he can't understand things, and there's no reasoning with him and no way to get around things, and it breaks my heart. And so that's something that we had this week. But that's part of life, and it's things that we're learning.
We pulled all the tricks out of the bag, but when you're dealing with a child that is super tired and not feeling well, it's just hard to come up against that and be successful.
Yeah. And I do think, a lesson to learn from this. I don't know if it would change everything completely. I mean, we knew it would be funny if we did a group, if we hugged without him, because we knew what his reaction would be. That was all good, but let him finish what he starts. I think is probably the best lesson for this. The moral of the story.
Don't rush somebody with autism. It's not a good idea.
It's not a great idea at all. Anyway, but on that
and you're
note,
right, I should know that by now.
You should know that by now. But every now and then,
I think I was tired too.
You were, and I gave that explanation to everybody that's listening because it was true. But anyway, it's all good. We're all happy.
Do we have a happy note to end on?
We've recovered. A happy note.
Whatever.
We're laughing. Is that good enough?
I thought you had an up.
I
up
do.
note to
I have
end on.
one
Come
more
on,
highlight.
smooth it out.
Okay, one more highlight. So we had mentioned that Bryce was sick, and after the drama of the Wednesday night sleep episode, and then he woke up at 3 a.m. that morning with a horrible coughing spell. And so we decided to let him stay home from school that morning with the plan of him going to his other school in the afternoon. But you had sent me a text to work that morning with a picture of him that was kind of pitiful. And he actually said to you, I'm still sick. Mm-hmm. And I honestly thought when you said, he says, I'm still sick, that you said, are you still sick? And he either said okay or yes. But you said he
said it on his own.
He said it on his own. I'm still sick.
Yep.
So he recognizes now when he's not feeling well and is able to tell us. And to me, that is a huge milestone for us. And I thought what was even cuter to follow that was by the time I got home, he was starting to feel better, and it was around 4:30, and he's like, "Oh," I said, "Are you feeling better now?" He goes, "All better. Go to school." I'm like, "No, school's closed now." And he's like, "Oh, go to school and see." He wanted to see his friends at school, so it was really cute that he knew. Well, it was great that he knew he could tell us he was sick. That wasn't cute. But it was cute when he could tell us that he was all better, and then he thought his schedule would just pick up like it normally would. Yeah. Like, okay, I'm better now. Let's go.
As soon as he's better, yeah.
But he's getting those concepts, and he's being able to communicate those things with us, and those are big victories in our world.
Yeah, big hurdles.
And that's what's going to help us avoid, more of the super sad breakdowns, is when he's able to communicate things with us more and why he's crying, when he's crying. So anyway, that's the happy note I will end on today.
I knew there was one.
You knew it. So, well, thanks to everybody that tuned in. If this is your first time, hey, we welcome you, and we hope you'll go back and catch back episodes, and that you'll continue to listen. If you have listened before and you continue to come back, we thank you very, very much. And we hope that you'll just continue to spread the word, that you'll follow us on. We got all the social media going on now, right? Yep. So I've given Chris that big assignment of,
all the links are on our website, I think. Yeah.
So we got Instagram, and we've got Facebook, and we got Twitter, and I think we even got YouTube videos going on. We're just really trying to help create that awareness. And if you can leave us, a kind review on Apple Pie, it's the Apple, right?
iTunes.
That gets iTunes. Yeah, that really helps people find us, and we always appreciate that as well. So on that note, I'm going to say have a fabulous day, whatever you're doing. May the Lord's light shine upon you, and we will look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Yes, the rain has stopped. The light is shining.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, peace out.
See you.